Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
They say Chicago summers are beautiful, but it has not been a beautiful start for the Bears as they open the Ben Johnson era. Also, the Raiders are giving Christian Wilkins the boot. And the NFC West is the most competitive division in the NFL.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The Chicago Bears open a new era of Chicago Bears football, not just because of the new Pope. Ben Johnson as the head coach. They're trying to turn the page here from the Matt Eberflus era, such that he was there long enough to call that one an era. And it was a little bit of a bumpy open to practice. We heard Ben Johnson yelling at some guys. There was some harsh words being used. Lauren Cox would never use harsh words from Locked On Bears. He joins me now. Lauren, what do you want to see from the early stages of this offense, understanding that this is a long-term play here?
Yeah, I think it's this newfound accountability. It's a wild concept, but like players being held to a higher standard. It's something that we've heard snippets of throughout the offseason, but like really not letting any little detail go. Like when we hear about Ben Johnson yelling at the offense, it's like they came out in 7-on-7s and players lined up in the wrong spot twice in a row. He goes, "All right, you guys are out. We're putting in the backups. Like we only have 90 minutes of practice. So like if you guys can't get this right now, you got to know this stuff." So like they're not just saying like, "Well, it's fine. It's the first day of training camp, whatever." It's no, like let's hold this to a higher standard and not just let what's been okay or good enough in the past just be good enough. And that's what can give Bears fans some kind of hope that maybe this time things can be different.
What do you hope to see from Caleb Williams in the early parts of training camp? Again, this is a new offense. We got all kinds of reporting, Lauren. You've been covering this extensively about what a you-know-what show the coaching behind the scenes for Caleb Williams was last year. This is a lot of new stuff for him. So what do you want to see early on here?
Yeah, I think it's about setting some of the foundational stuff here that like Ben Johnson will, he'll scheme up the fun, brilliant plays later on, but you need a quarterback whose footwork is precise and whose footwork lines up with the timing of the plays, right? And if you can get it, the basic, simple steps down of, hey, yeah, on your fifth step, you got to be looking here. And then on your hitch, you got to be looking there. Then you can build so much of the fun structure off of that. But if you don't have that sort of baseline sort of really specific footwork dynamics really locked in, like that's going to be the foundational stuff. So that's why they're being really hard on Caleb Williams about a lot of this stuff. And there's going to be some sloppy bumps along the way, but you feel like he's certainly a talented enough quarterback that once you get that foundation set, then when the rules have to get broken, when a play breaks down, like that's when he can still work his magic off of that.
Or at least, that's the theory. We've seen theory not be enough before, right? One thing that stuck out to me, Lauren, I was looking at neutral pass rates, basically how often teams run the ball, early downs mostly. When the game is still on the line, the Lions in the Ben Johnson era ran it a ton. And I do wonder if maybe we're over indexing on the Colston Loveland pick, the Luther Burden pick, the excitement we have for Roma Dunze as a prospect, thinking that this is going to be some like Ben Johnson, they're going to call the flea flicker play every play kind of offense, when the Lions were a grind it out, we're going to go 12 plays and we might run it 10 on a drive if it's working kind of offense too. Are we underestimating what a big piece of the offense this run game needs to be for the Chicago team?
Yeah, I think needs to be is the right word there, because I think that the thing you weigh there is like, well, would you rather be getting the ball in the hands of Moore, Dunze, and Loveland, or DeAndre Swift, right? Like at the end of the day, it's not an overly talented backfield, but you hope that all the investments they made in the offensive line, plus maybe a more cohesive run scheme and a really structured game plan, can just make DeAndre Swift certainly at least good enough in this backfield to be able to lean on it. But even Ben Johnson this week said, like, we haven't decided whether we're going to be an outside zone team like Detroit or if we're going to be a gap scheme team. Like, we're going to see what works best for this offensive line, what works best for these backs, and we're really going to work on all that at training camp and then kind of build the identity from there. But we shouldn't just expect that he's going to pick up what he did in Detroit and just apply it to this Bears roster all over, because there's going to be quite a few tweaks and intricacies that are specific to this roster.
We did get early word. There's a soft tissue injury for Luther Burden. They're trying to, tight ends notoriously take a long time, although Sam Laporta in Detroit did not take a long time. So they're going to need the weapons when the passing game comes around, but they're also going to need a defense. The best way to try and win games is that Lions defense. They matured. They came together. Aaron Glenn coached the hell out of those guys. Defensively, there's a lot of pieces here. New system. What's the vibes? What's the feeling around this defense right now?
Yeah, the feeling is that Dennis Allen is going to put certainly these corners in a position to be a little bit more physical and aggressive, which I think lines up with the skill sets of guys like Jalen Johnson and Tyreek Stevenson a little bit better. And that, he's been looking forward to the speed at linebacker from Tremaine Edmonds. And I think a smart player on the inside for TJ Edwards is moving back to the middle linebacker spot, and Edmonds is going to play the weak side linebacker so you can flow a little bit more. But I still have real concerns about this pass rush and how well they're going to be able to consistently pressure opposing quarterbacks. And so I think it's going to be a good sort of Rorschach test of Dennis Allen's ability here to say, like, can he make a little bit more out of a little bit less upfront? I feel like he did that at times in New Orleans and still had good defenses, even without like a defensive line full of top flight pass rushers. But I think there's going to need to be some creativity in there to, whether it's different formations, blitzes, stunts, moving guys up and down the line of scrimmage to create pass rush when maybe the pure talent isn't 100% what you might want it to be.
You can stay up to date all year on the Chicago Bears by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Bears on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. You're Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, the Raiders are cutting Christian Wilkins after giving him a bunch of money. Before we get to that, Aaron Rodgers had a fun opening to Steelers training camp. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Tired of endless scrolling, trying to find the best deal? Game Time Zone Deals pick the best deals in your section for you. And with Game Time, the price you see is the price you pay, no hidden fees. Take the guesswork out of buying concerts and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. Aaron Rodgers' Steelers debut didn't go exactly as planned. His first pass at camp was picked off by Patrick Queen. But Rodgers took it in stride, saying it's good to get that out of the way. He also got a surprise suite mate in DK Metcalf. The two are roommates in the St. Vincent dorms, complete with shared bathroom knock-ins and off-field bonding. Just your typical training camp with 4 All-Pros. Over on the diamond, the Jays trounced the Tigers.
This is just the best team in baseball. They are the best team in baseball. Now, I will give some credit. The Brewers are pretty good, too. But, oh, my God. The Toronto Blue Jays 11-4 victory over the Tigers. The AL is ours. The AL is ours. You see this guy pull up to the mound, Eric Lauer, be terrified. This guy is a beast. He doesn't care who you are. He beats you anyway. We talk all about Vladdy, Bo, Barger, Ernie Clement with the home run power 3-run shot. Nathan Lucas, home run. And Joey Loperfido. This lineup, 1 through 9, everyone gets a hit. Everyone contributes. This is massive. This team, all the way to the World Series. Let's go.
The Cardinals battled it out with the Padres.
Well, how about that? The St. Louis Cardinals get blanked in Colorado on Wednesday. They come home and have to face the Padres, who are sitting in a wild card spot, and they score 9 runs. How do you explain it? I don't know, but I'm glad that they picked up a W. Hey, it's JD from Locked On Cardinals. Cardinals win at 9-7 over the San Diego Padres. They beat their former manager, Mike Schilt. Sonny Gray got the start tonight. Wasn't very good at all. Only last 5 innings. Is charged with 5 earned runs. Gives up 7 total. He's been in a funk on the mound so far, as have most of the starting pitchers that throw for the St. Louis Cardinals. But lucky for him tonight, the offense was able to step up and get the job done. They have that huge second inning where they hit 2 3-run home runs. Brendan Donovan got one. Wilson Contreras got one. Ivan Herrera would hit one later on in the game as well. And they hang on and outslug the Padres by a score of 9-7. They should still trade and sell their assets at the trade deadline, but it's nice to pick up a W. For the latest updates and info, be sure to keep it Locked On Cardinals.
The world of professional wrestling has lost maybe its biggest icon. Hulk Hogan, the red and yellow clad superstar who body slammed his way into pop culture, has died at 71. From headlining the first WrestleMania to revolutionizing wrestling again as Hollywood Hogan, he wasn't just the face of an era, he was the era. The Raiders are cutting ties with defensive tackle Christian Wilkins shortly after signing him to a massive 4-year deal. Locked On Raiders host, your boy Q, reacts to the shocking news.
It was wild. I was on my radio show on Thursday. It was almost over. It was 4:30. I know we were about to go to commercial. No joke, Raider Nation. We were about to go to commercial. I was about to tee up and tease the next segment and throw out the phone number to get some calls and texts and everything. And then all of a sudden I saw this tweet from Adam Schefter. And so before we went to commercial, I said, wait, hold on, I got to read. So in real time, and look, I'm a guy who talks a lot, as you know. Anyone who has listened to this show for a day, 20 days, 20, whatever, you know what I mean? For the longest time, you know I like to talk. I was at a loss of words when I saw this tweet from Adam Schefter come rolling down. ESPN sources, Raiders are releasing defensive tackle Christian Wilkins with the designation of terminated vested veteran. His time in Las Vegas is now over. Due to how Wilkins treated the rehab from his foot injury he suffered last season, the Raiders voided the remaining $35.2 million of guaranteed money left on Wilkins' contract last month, and today Wilkins filed a grievance with the NFLPA. I literally had to read that about 4 times. One, to make sure that wasn't a fake Adam Schefter tweet, right? You know, there's so many of those fake accounts out there. And then I had to process it, but I'm trying to relay it on the radio in real time. Like right now, I'm able to do it and say it smoothly, but I must have messed those words up about 5 times as I was trying to read it, just because, again, didn't believe it. Everything that we had heard, or everything that I had heard, at least, I don't want to speak for everybody, but everything that I had heard is that he was actually pretty close to coming back, and there was a chance that he could be available before, you know, the 4th game of the season, somewhere in between week 1 and week 4. That was some sounds and some thoughts that I had been getting from other people, and well, clearly that was not the case. So Schefter went on another tweet and said, with the Raiders voiding the remainder $35.2 million in guaranteed money left on Christian Wilkins' contract last month, and Wilkins filing agreements with the NFLPA today, this is a situation that is far from over. The NFLPA had 50 days to file agreements on behalf of Christian Wilkins after the Raiders voided the money of guaranteed money in his contract on June 4th. $8 million for this year, $27.25 million for next year. The agreement was filed this morning. A legal battle awaits. So this is a situation that's probably going to get really ugly between the NFLPA, between the Raiders. Obviously, there's going to be lawyers involved. And I thought Adam Hill of the Las Vegas Review-Journal, he's also part of my sister station here in Las Vegas, ESPN Las Vegas. He tweeted this out: about to see the first real test of the new NFLPA regime, as the Christian Wilkins saga is probably going to get wild. Wilkins, on a side note, was the Raiders player rep. So the player rep for the Raiders when it comes to the NFLPA was Christian Wilkins. Now, obviously, they're going to have to find another guy, but the NFLPA is going to get involved. And, you know, I've been bringing up on the show everything that's been going on in the situation between the NFL and the NFLPA and how it was getting messy, and there was a lot of layers to it. Now, this is just going to add to it. And as Adam Hill said, it's really going to test the strength of the NFLPA at this stage of the game. Also, to Sean Reed from The Athletic, during the offseason, the Raiders determined that defensive tackle Christian Wilkins needed another procedure in order for his injured left foot to heal. Per source, Wilkins disagreed, sparking a dispute that ultimately led to his release. So remember, he suffered this injury in week 5, right? He had the surgery in October, and now we're looking at the end of July, and he's still not ready to go. All offseason, we've been talking about in a boot, out of a boot, out of a boot, in a boot, what's going to happen with him, right? And then, of course, he starts training camp on the PUP list, and all we're talking about and all I'm focused in on is he still on the PUP list when they get to the end of training camp? Because if so, he's going to miss the first 4 games. It does not matter. Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, Rap Sheet, he put this out, had this statement to make on the Christian Wilkins release, trying to summarize everything that had gone on. Check it out. Ian Rappaport of NFL Network just kind of summarizing what had been going on with Christian Wilkins and how this had all of a sudden become a battle. And right, a lot of folks saw, and I saw this on social media as well, right before training camp got started, Christian Wilkins, a video of him in the Raiders locker room, you know, and he was dancing to some Backstreet Boys sound. And I don't know, I never knew how old that video was. If it was old, I know the Backstreet Boys were in Las Vegas, so it seemed like it was pretty current. But if, you know, they took away his money back in June, I can't imagine that in July he was in the Raiders weight room having a good time and dancing and celebrating all that. So that to me kind of caught me off guard. But this right here is what I thought really were the words that really kind of let you know where this staff is and how they felt about this situation. And matter of fact, before I even read the statement, think about this. Remember on Tuesday when Pete Carroll opened up the training camp with his press conference, and the first question by Vinny Bonsignore was that about Christian Wilkins and is there any timeline? And he was very short. Like, he didn't have hardly anything to say. When back in OTAs and mandatory minicamp, he was very detailed about the situation. He was saying it was frustrating, but they were going to do everything that they could, you know, to make sure he was back. At this time, he was like, there's no timetable, right? He was very short and moved on. So that to me, like, is all playing back in my mind. But this statement from the Raiders on the release of Christian Wilkins, I thought was a very powerful statement. They said, we have decided that it is the best interest of the organization to move on from Christian Wilkins, and he has been informed of his release from the team. This franchise has a commitment to excellence on and off the field. With no clear path or plan for future return to play for Christian, this transaction is necessary for the entire organization to move forward and prepare for the new season. Again, I thought that was a hell of a message by the Raiders. Normally when you see a statement made by a team on the release of a player or a trade of a player or even a firing of a coach, it's just like, hey, we'd like to thank them for their time with the organization, and we, you know, wish them best on their, you know, future endeavors, yada, yada, yada. You know, it's like cookie cutter, just replace the name, this, that, and the other, and whatever they did. If it's a release, it's a release. If it's a firing, it's a firing. But normally that's kind of what it is. That's not what that statement was at all. Again, we've decided that it is in the best interest of the organization to move on from Christian Wilkins. He has been informed of his release from the team. This franchise has a commitment to excellence on and off the field with no clear path or plan for future return to play for Christian. This transaction is necessary for the entire organization to move forward and prepare for the new season. And that's exactly what this Raiders organization is going to do.
Stay up to date all year on the Las Vegas Raiders by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Raiders on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the NFC West race is going to be a wild ride. The NFC West is going to be extremely competitive. Brian Peacock and Matt Williamson explain why they believe it's the only division in the NFL that you could make an argument for any team to win.
After 5 weeks of the season, we were talking about, oh man, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp. This whole thing is going to get blown up because they were the Rams were 1-4, and they did not look good. And it was like, okay, well, this is the end, and they're going to have to rebuild this whole thing and tear it all down. And Sean McVay barely wanted to come back. Aaron Donald was done, and all of a sudden, they went on a tear and ended up winning the division. And we look at the Rams so much differently than we did like 9 months ago.
The qualifiers are important here because I don't think the Bears have a reasonable chance to win the NFC North. But the NFC North is objectively a better division than the NFC West. I don't know that the Raiders have a real chance to win the AFC West, but the AFC West is clearly better than the NFC West. The reason this is true, that the NFC West is the most competitive division, is number one, because the Titans stink in the AFC South, but also because none of these teams are that great. They're all in that, they're pretty good range, between 8 and 10 wins. That's what the 49ers, Rams, Seahawks TBD with Sam Darnold, and Cardinals are. They're fine teams. None of them, at least as we stand here today, are real contenders in the conference. That's not the case in the NFC North, where the Lions, the Packers, and maybe even the Vikings consider themselves real contenders. That's not the case in the AFC West, where the Chiefs, definitely the Chiefs, probably the Chargers, and the Broncos, those were all playoff teams last year. they're really good and expect to be really good this year. And then all the Raiders did was add Geno Smith, the best player in college football, and a Super Bowl winning coach in Pete Carroll. The NFC West being the most competitive division is not exactly a brag because it's a competitive division because none of those teams are that good. And finally, Nebraska junior Arden Lockheim rewrote a little history during her victory at the Utah Women's State Amateur. After knocking off six-time champion Kelsey Chugg in the semis, she closed the deal with a dominant 7-6 win over the 17-year-old Kate Walker in the final. Lockheim said, "I definitely was riding an adrenaline high all week long. I'm hitting it further at elevation, obviously, because Nebraska is not 7,000 feet, but I think I gained 5 to 10 yards just throughout the week from being juiced the entire time." Congratulations to Arden and what I can only assume are a very happy set of parents. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, are the Falcons ready to make a push for the playoffs with Michael Penix Jr. at the helm? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.